Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to look at recent sales for the vintage collection. It's like pulling teeth because it's hard to find any interesting sales to talk about for the vintage collection. It seems like the usual suspects are the ones that are kind of worth noting, and I don't want to kind of repeat myself. So I did find a few others that in this batch that I thought were worth talking about, and I wanted to talk more about that Jabba the Hutt test shot prototype that, you know, some more of those has sold as well. So thank you as always for tuning in. Please be sure to leave me a like if you enjoy the content. But here's everything that I found that was worth maybe mentioning that has sold within the last week or so. First, we'll start off with Power Droid. This is one I had not seen before. This is the Canadian twin pod cloud car pilot, but it was offerless. And I don't remember ever seeing one of these sell before. Usually they either have the Boba Fett error, which more on that in a second, but or the corrected version with the Boba Fett offer in the lower right-hand corner. But this one is an offerless example with no paperwork inside. And you guys can fill me in on the comments on how common the offer lists are for those really early TVC 1.0, VC11. So I just thought that was an interesting one to show because I personally had not seen that before. A Canadian offerless cloud car pilot, $55. And then speaking of the Boba Fett error, this is the Boba Fett error for a Boba Fett Canadian card. So a lot going on this card. Very cool item. That one sold for $150. That one sold really quick. Boba Fett VC09 Canadian with the error on the offer. $149.95. Here's another one that we hadn't seen in a while. This is the unpunched Magna Guard. That's kind of been mentioned by, you know, a number of folks that cover the vintage collection full time. That, you know, it's one of the really tough ones to get unpunched. And we've seen some, I mean, dating back to last year, there was a high-grade AFA example that sold for, I think, $800 or $900. So this one was an unpunched example that sold for $280. $280 is the price on that. And, you know, it looked pretty clean. There's some dust on it and some very light edge wear to it, but pretty good price for a tough-to-find unpunched early TVC Magna Guard at $280. Kit Fisto, another sales point here. This is one we covered in the last video, but this has the hole punch kind of falling out. So at least he disclosed that by showing it there. It doesn't look like it here, but if you look on this side, you can see that the hole punch is starting to pop out of there. So that one sold for $80, and again, unpunched is probably going to be a little bit more expensive, but that one did sell for $80. The ARC Trooper Commander. VC54, this one was the US card, unpunched, and, you know, he did kind of just show different angles there. I didn't really see anything wrong with it, but that one, maybe right around the hang tab, there might be some very light wear to it there, but that one sold for $130 plus shipping. All right, on to the Jabba the Hutt action playset. So we're going to show the original, you know, the retail release, obviously, that was packed in with 8D8 and Salacious Crumb. So this one sold in an auction for $160.50 plus $10 shipping. But I wanted to talk more about that test shot prototype that was offered by a seller in China that I think just gets lots of different Hasbro related products and then sells them on eBay. And so this seller had 11 of these available. I had it in my what to buy video a couple of weeks back, and I also talked about this one last week. But this one is a true test shot prototype. They had 11 of them, and it's a defect, right? So they were like testing the mold out or testing the equipment out, who knows? And so they had 11 of these without the arms. And I know a number of you bought them, and you were like asking me, several of you asked me actually, should I send it to AFA or to Collector Archive Services if you're here in the US? And the answer is you have to send it to Collector Archive Services, to my knowledge. AFA does not grade prototypes unless they're 100% complete, which I disagree with. I think that's a stupid policy because like these, you know, these are test shot prototypes. They don't, you know, they're manufacturing the arms separately from the body and the head piece and then connecting them in as part of the assembly process. So to me, this is an awesome piece of collecting history for the vintage collection. You get it for $100, free shipping from China. It does take a long time for these to arrive from China, but to me, I think it's a shame that AFA won't grade this type of stuff. But you're going to have to send it to Collector Archive Services if you want to get it graded and authenticated and wrapped in like an acrylic case. So send it to CAS. And if you guys happen to get these and you send them in for, authentication, I would love to see the finished photos from Collector Archive Services. So make sure to email me, one of y'all, because I think it would be really cool to just check out, and I'll show it on the channel. We're talking several months from now, because you got to wait for it to get shipped from China, and then you got to send it to CAS for authentication. But if you do get one, send me an email with the final photos, because I'd love to see what it looks like. actionfiguregrader@gmail.com. But those are really cool, and I think that was a great buy at $100, and all 11 of those did sell finally. So congrats to those of you that were able to pick one of those up. Next up, this seller had some beautiful TVC 1.0 that I wanted to point out. Wicked is one that I think talked about in the last video, and I just didn't realize that he was fairly expensive. And this one is the Revenge of the Jedi retail release with the prototype FET offer, unpunched US card. That one sold for $105.50 plus shipping. Same seller also had the Sand Trooper. That's another one that we've talked about recently, and this was a very healthy sales price of $202.50. So this continues to be very much in demand. VC 112 on the US card, unpunched. Unpunched is where the action's at, and it gets very, very pricey for that one. So $202.50. Princess Leia in her Bespin outfit. This was a big number here. One of the biggest numbers I've seen in a while. And they did a close-up of the date stamp on the back of the card. I don't know what the significance was of that, or if they mentioned anything there. They didn't really mention anything, but that number was a pretty substantial number at $195.50. And we also did have a punched example. This one was unpunched. This one was punched. That one sold for $100. So almost double the price to go from punched to unpunched for VC 111. Is that right? VC 111. Princess Leia in her slave outfit, in her Bespin outfit. It's a little early in the morning. And then we had VC 113, the Republic Trooper. Obviously, the original issue with the character debut sticker. That one sold for $102.50. So this one is held fairly strong. It really dropped, obviously, but it's kind of bounced back up again. I remember seeing some unpunched examples for the Republic Trooper original issue going for sub $100, but this one did sell for $102.50. And then Oramarco Prune Face unpunched. This is one. This sales price again is up. I mean, this is an up sales price. This one had kind of been hovering around 125 or so, and then it dropped to about $100. We even saw some sales recently for Prune Face sub $100, but this one did sell in an auction for $147.50. So it's nice to see some recent sales for, I wouldn't call these common. I mean, these were kind of later releases that were, online exclusives, or, online fan channel exclusives, if memory serves, that were always kind of pricey, but had dropped recently and then kind of popped back up in price. So $147.50 is definitely a big number for VC 114 in an auction as well. So these are not buy it now situations. We had the Imperial Assault Tank Commander again. That one sold for $79, and then this one sold for $80. So that's one we talked about last week, and that gives you two recent data points for the Imperial Assault Tank Commander, $79 and $80, with the new Andor series season 2 and final season coming out here soon. Maybe we'll see some new characters for that, but I'm very, very excited for season 2 of Andor, and that should be coming up, in about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we also had another data point for all 4 of the Ghost pack-in figures: Eris Syndulla, Ezra Bridger, Kanan, and Zeb Aurelius. This is kind of a new low data point at $250 plus $12 shipping. Individually right now, they're selling for about $80 a piece, which would put you at $320. So if you can find another good deal like this for all 4 of them together for $250-ish. I think that's a really good price point, just given where they're selling for individually right now, which is about $80. This is a big number for an auction for the Dr. Aphra comic set, special action figure set with BT1, 000, and Dr. Aphra. What is up with Dr. Aphra, by the way? I feel like she had this massive push by me, too. I mean, I really thought that we were going to see her fairly soon in live action content, and it's just been dropped, and I don't know why, because she is such a perfect character for episodic content. I don't understand what Disney's reasoning is for holding off on doing something with Dr. Aphra. I think, if it checks every box for Disney, right? You got a female lead, you got droids, you got all kinds of cool episodic content where she could be, searching for different Sith artifacts. I mean, I don't understand why Dr. Aphra has not been announced for a Disney Plus series. It just makes so much sense. Now, a lot of it could be budget, right? They're kind of pulling back on spending right now, rightly so, just because of some of the flops they've had, like the Acolyte and things like that. But man, I just feel like this is like a no-brainer home run if you select the actress or actor to play Dr. Aphra. If you pick the right person who's got a little bit of comedy in her, and has some action kind of chops, I feel like she would be a perfect candidate, and I just don't know what the deal is. But this one sold for $102.50. I'll shut up about Dr. Aphra. I love Dr. Aphra. I just want to see her in live action content. God, it drives me nuts. Next up, Darth Revan again. This one sold for $100. We have seen some data points for Darth Revan sub $100, $80 ish. So, try to get it at that price. But this one was probably a, big bad toy store collector grade type example. So that one sold for $100, and then we had another graded example that was uncirculated 85 that sold in an auction for $240 for Darth Revan, a graded example. And then the uncirculated 9.0 Cara Dune did sell. This was the last one that Yak Face Collectibles had for sale. So all three of those did sell for $169.99 and plus $18 shipping. So big healthy numbers there for Cara Dune. And we also had a proof card that sold. This was a Boba Fett unpunched proof card from, I think it was SDCC. Yeah, SDCC giveaway. AFA 9.0. That one sold for $200. Seller had two of those available, so both of those did sell. We had an uncirculated 9.0 prototype Fett offer sell, or prototype Fett period sell this. This is the mail away VC61 prototype Fett armor and uncirculated 9.0. That one sold for $290. That's a big number. This one had kind of dropped back down, but $290 for an uncirculated 9.0. And then two vehicles again sold this week. These are ones that we talk about a lot, but I just at least wanted to show them. The Millennium Falcon original issue sold for $750 plus $37 shipping. So about $790 for that one. And then the Y-Wing fighter also sold for $300 plus $26 shipping. So again, not terribly exciting data points, but a few that I wanted to kind of chat about. And I hope you enjoyed this look at recent sales for the Vintage Collection. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll be back soon.